The manhwa starts off with the MC, Suho Kim, waking up on the ground. He quickly realizes that he has been teleported into the world of the book he was just reading. He has taken over the identity of Lloyd Frontera, an aristocrat delinquent that does whatever he wants to do. It is now his mission to make everyone he knows trust him again and save his royal family from their debt so that he can live a life of luxury without any worries in the world. The twist is that he used to be a civil engineer in his old life, so he can use his knowledge and use it on the underdeveloped world of the book to get riches beyond compare. Lloyd Frontera is currently upgrading the infrastructure of the town his house governs. Enjoy the video.
A few days later, we can see Podong making a lawn path in the dirt. Javier asks Lloyd what he is doing, and Lloyd responds by saying he is carving a road. The feeble soldiers are now strong and proper construction workers, so the real work can now begin. Lloyd talks about an ancient city called Rome. They had a lot of roads connecting buildings and walkways. All the roads' construction was possible because of a technique called the Appian Way. Lloyd tells Javier that he will now be using that method. The road will go from the Baron's Manor to the base of the eastern mountain. Javier asks, why a road? And Lloyd tells him to just wait and see. He asks him where he got all this knowledge from. Javier says that Lloyd has built a heating system that no one has ever heard of before, summoned a high-level creature out of nowhere, and now this. Are you really Lloyd? Asks Javier. Suddenly, Lloyd gets a warning message saying that Javier has suspicions of his identity. Lloyd's heart starts to beat. He worries that if Javier found out that he switched bodies with the original Lloyd Frontera, he would use his sword on him. Lloyd pulls a dumb face and says that he studied while no one was looking.
I studied, bro.
And he asks Javier if he has a problem with it. Lloyd uses his special skill, stubborn insistence, to persuade Javier. He doesn't reply and just looks blankly at Lloyd. Lloyd turns around and says that if he has nothing to say, he should keep his mouth closed. Lloyd asks the Baron to watch the road while he is away on an unexpected trip. The Baron accepts the responsibilities and says that he will take care of it while he is away. Javier tells Lloyd that he is coming with, and Lloyd tells him that he wants him to come anyway, so he has no problem with it. Javier asks where they are going, and Lloyd says that their destination is far away. They need to take back some of the money that was stolen from them. We switch scenes and are taken to a small border town called Ludania. A man slams his fist on a table. He complains that he keeps losing money by gambling and says that they had to have been cheating. The character's name is revealed to be Tordes, the real estate conman. His bodyguard tells him that is how gambling works. You win some, you lose some. He says that if Tordes has no money, he will be taking his leave. Tordes panics and tells him that he will have enough to pay him. He tries to figure out how to make more money, but there are people after him, so he needs to hide. Before he finishes his sentence, the one and only Lloyd barges through the door, asking if he was just talking about him. Tordes asks who he is, and Lloyd remembers that he doesn't know what Lloyd looks like. So, he reveals himself and Tordes turns white as a ghost. The bodyguard asks if he should kill him, but Tordes says they should run away. He takes Tordes and jumps out the window. He looks up and sees Javier waiting for him in the alleyway. Javier tells him that he can leave Tordes with him and leave quietly. He thinks to himself, it is just as Master Lloyd said. They will jump out the back window, so wait for them there. The bodyguard tells him he looks very young, so he should be a piece of cake. Lloyd thinks about Javier's fight with the bodyguard in the book. Javier struggles heavily with the encounter because it's his first time fighting against dark magic. But things are different now. The bodyguard throws gravitational magic towards him, and he gets stuck in a purple sphere. He clenches his fist, and Javier starts to sink into the ground. Just then, Javier initiates his triple circle mana heart, and whooshes the bodyguard's attack in one swing. He looks dumbfounded, as no one has ever been able to dispel his attack before. Without hesitating, he dips. Leaving Tordes defenseless. Javier throws his arm back, ready to swing at Tordes. He threatens him, saying that he will cut off both his legs and he will have to crawl to the courthouse. But Lloyd protects Tordes. He shouts at Javier, telling him he is out of control. Javier is speechless of Lloyd's action of showing pity for another person. Tordes is seen tied to a chair, and he looks nervous. Lloyd assures him that there's no reason to be scared. He tells Tordes that it's normal to be greedy occasionally. He thinks that beheading people for stealing is a bit harsh, so Tordes asks Lloyd if they are going to forgive him, and responds that they aren't going to take him to court. if he returns what he stole. Tordes agrees, saying that if they forgive him, he will gladly give them their remaining assets. Lloyd says that he might be confused. Paying us back is just the start of the forgiving process, says Lloyd. He slips Tordes a contract and says that if he signs the contract, they won't lay a finger on him. Tordes is suspicious of the piece of paper, but Lloyd tells him to not worry about it. It is a normal employment contract with a paid salary, but he adds that 80% of his salary will go to repaying back the money he stole from the Baron estate. Tordes looks up nervously. With a grin on his face, Lloyd says that after 520 years he can fully pay them back what he stole. Lloyd thinks to himself that there's no way he would let a man who owed them money die. He is going to suck him dry for the rest of his life.
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
Tordes shouts out that he has never seen such a shamefully unjust contract. Lloyd responds with a death stare, saying that it's such a shame he can't force him to sign. If he can't sign the contract, then they will have to go to court. After weighing his options of dying or living as a wage slave, Tordes takes the wise choice and signs the contract with tears running down his face. The three musketeers are going back home on the back of a horse-driven cart. Tordes gives them a bit of money to help start repaying his debt. Javier says it should cover a few months' worth of interest. Lloyd butts in, saying that he won't be using Tordes' donation to pay the interest. In the next slide, we can see a sign that has been put up. Lloyd wants to speed up production of the ondals and roads, so he has started looking for extra workers. A long line has formed, which Lloyd is quite surprised about. He asked Javier if these people used to hate him, and he says yes. But things have changed after he performed his miracles with the ondal, trader, and mysteriously big summon. The villagers see Lloyd as a talented and trustworthy person now. A person in line gets his attention, and Lloyd asks him to sign the paper. They express their gratitude towards him. Their child used to get sick when wintertime came around every year. But this time they can all stay warm thanks to his ondal system. He bows his head in appreciation. As he is walking back, he also mentions that a friend of his in a neighboring town wanted an ondal as well. Lloyd is very happy with this news, as it means that he can start branching to other city and towns now, which means more money for him. Javier looks at Lloyd and thinks to himself that he's up to no good again. He finally realizes why Lloyd was selling the ondals at a loss, so he could get the word of mouth out and start increasing his target market. But he wonders to himself why Lloyd has started building a road. We change the scene and can see Javier and Lloyd standing on top of a mountain. He tells Javier that soon the mountains they are standing on will be left completely bare. Lloyd explains that ondals require an astronomical amount of fuel, and the trees they have in their land just won't be enough. He explains that the reason he is laying down the road is because at the end of it is the black coal mine. He turns on greedy mode and says that they can sell the coal for a crazy markup. Javier looks at him with anger in his eyes while gritting his teeth. "You are probably thinking that I'm sneaky and devious, huh?" says Lloyd. He continues talking, saying that he is doing this to repay their debts. Javier admits that what they are doing is the best solution for now, but there is a reason that they have not ventured into the coal mines in a long time. Previous barons have tried and failed several times to access the. But before Javier could finish his sentence, Lloyd says that he knows the risks of it and says he has a plan. He says he has the benefit of modern technology on his side, the shield tunneling method. Javier wonders to himself what the heck Lloyd is talking about, but decides to trust him. He says to himself that Lloyd is a new man and he should stay close to his side. We look at the cave and in a frame we can see glowing red eyes in the darkness. Spooky. Lloyd claps his hands together and starts to summon a luxury building using one of his skills. He shoots a green beam into the sky, and you can see a building shooting up from the ground. We are taken back to reality, and Lloyd wishes he had a skill that could magically create buildings and skyscrapers. He complains that drawing the schematics for buildings was boring, and he wishes he had workers who he didn't have to pay. Do it for him. After revealing that Sir Newman was actually a traitor, he reached 639 ARP thanks to Javier, the Baron, the Baroness, and the Bayern. Lloyd then proceeds to go on a leveling spree and get a lot of different skills. In the next panel, we can see Lloyd standing outside the coal mine. He uses his advanced surveyor skill and looks inside to see how safe the path is. He starts thinking about ways to dig the hard stone and how to transport it out quickly. It would take too long if humans do it, and Podong is tired from making the road, which leaves only one option. Gotcha pet time. The tiny circle reappears and out pops a pink snake with a bow on their head and a bell on their tail. Cute. Lloyd wonders if this pet is also going to help him, or it was just a dud for real this time. Can you grow bigger too? Asks Lloyd. Do you also have a special skill? The pet continues to nod. He asks the pet if she can show him her skill. We time skip a few weeks later and get a 5-step process of how they are clearing out the mine. We can see the pet chomping away at dirt. The pet then shoots out the dirt out of her butt. Javier readies himself and then starts cutting the rods into certain sizes while they are still hot. After that, the blacksmiths hammer the steel in usable shapes. Javier questions his existence and wonders why, as a knight, he is underground slashing steel that's coming from a giant snake butt. They move forward and then repeat the entire process. Lloyd starts to get dizzy from the lack of oxygen. If he never installed the makeshift oxygen pipe, he would have fainted already. Javier asks Lloyd if he shouldn't take a break. Lloyd looks away, calling him a fool. Since he is the one in charge, he needs to always be present and working hard to be a good example. Lloyd uses his skill and can see his first ore of coal a few meters into the rock wall. He throws his shovel in the air in victory and tells his men that they are almost there. He thanks the snake for helping get the work done 10 times faster than he initially thought. He tells everyone to not let their guard down. A sudden thud comes from the wall behind him. He tells himself that the rock should be solid, so there's no reason for it to be a cave. He scans the wall carefully and sees a hole towards the back. That wasn't there before. After Lloyd says those words, a giant ant comes crashing through the rock like a bulldozer. Lloyd shields the first blow with his shovel, and Javier unsheathes his blade, cutting off 2 antennas from the ant. Lloyd follows up by smashing the ant in the head, killing it. They look up while catching their breath, only to see another 200 pairs of eyes looking back at them through the darkness. Lloyd tells the workers to evacuate immediately. Javier starts doing his things, and the giant ants start dying one after another. But Lloyd knows he can't keep it up forever, as their lack of oxygen is getting more and more severe. While Lloyd starts getting overwhelmed with panic while trying to figure out a plan of action, Javier comes into the rescue by slapping Lloyd in the face and leaving a red mark smack bang on the left side of his cheek. Lloyd screams at Javier, telling him he is not panicking and just thinking of a plan. Javier retorts by saying that he better think of a plan quickly, because he can't hold out for much longer. He goes into super focus mode and a light bulb flicks on inside his mind. He grabs a torch and tells Javier to run inside the ant colony. Javier thinks to himself that Lloyd must have gone crazy, but he trusts his judgment and follows him inside.
We switch scenes and someone rushes into the Baron's room, informing the Baron that wild ants that have started attacking the workers in the mines. He asks how Lloyd is, and the worker tells him that he ordered everyone to evacuate and stayed to fight he ants with Javier. The Baron puts his armor and tells the worker to get a horse ready. We are back Javier, and he is still slicing and dicing the ants. Javier screams out to Lloyd, asking how much longer, and Lloyd responds with saying he needs a little more time. Javier tells Lloyd that he is losing breath. He uses his observer skill and looks for a layer of methane has around. He finds a pocket and starts digging down. He tells Javier to stay put and cover him from all angles. Just then, a loud noise causes both of them to cover their ears in pain. The Queen has entered. Lloyd asks Javier if can defeat her, and he plainly says no. Still, do we have a choice at this moment? Says Javier, with sweat running down his face. The Queen starts charging towards the duo, so Javier retaliates by charging forward as well. He activated his triple circle mana heart and then swings at the Queen. He swipes the Queen away from Lloyd, and he uses this chance to dig the last remaining dirt until they hit the methane layer. He yells at Javier to run for the exit while he runs for the torch. Both run through the piles of dead ants that have been littered all over the floor. They jump through a hole, and Lloyd turns around while throwing the torch. "Feast on this boy," exclaims Lloyd, as the torch hits the queen ant and lands near the hole Lloyd dug. The queen ant tries to get to the duo, but the hole is too small. Just then, the air catches alight, and the room is filled with fire. The ants get blown in knits by the huge explosion. Javier runs to Lloyd and covers him from the explosion. The fire travels all throughout the ant tunnels, not leaving a single ant alive. From up top, everyone in the entrance of the cave can hear a loud noise. Lloyd's father screams for his son, but the Baron, desperately trying to keep the Baron out of the cave, says that he cannot put himself in danger as well. Javier gets up saying that his ears are ringing like crazy. He turns around and sees the dead queen behind him. He sees Javier next to him and thanks him for shielding him from the blast. Bengal, the snake, also seems to be unconscious, but it doesn't get any better for the three of them. Lloyd looks up and sees that the cave has collapsed from the entrance side as well. He looks at the rocks in front of him and sees that he needs to dig at least 15 feet through it. He gets a message that he is running low on oxygen and gets to digging as fast as he can. Javier opens his eyes and sees Lloyd digging, before falling unconscious as well. Lloyd gets a message saying that Javier is touched by his determination. He earns 6 approval points and 108 RP, putting his total at 157. With his oxygen at critical levels, he asks the system if there's any skill that can help him. The system starts scanning for any pre-existing skills. It identifies 3 skills and gives Lloyd the option to combine them into one skill called the Azrahan Core Technique. Lloyd clenches his fist, happy that he was able to find something useful. He presses yes on the confirmation window and spends 10 RP. He gets a surge of mana, and a small blue light starts to circle around his heart. It is not exactly like Javier's mana heart, but it is similar in effectiveness. His mana output is amplified 120%. Most people would have had to train for years and years to obtain what Lloyd was easily able to get with a few RP points. He levels up his technique with another 10 RP, making it level 6 after having a base of level 5. His mana output is now 125%, but the next level up requires 15 RP. He presses away on the yes button and eventually tears up to 2 circles now. His mana output is at 200%. With the tier up, he gets 2 new skills. One that allows him to move for 10 minutes without fatigue, and another one that allows him to triple his mana output for 20 seconds. But he can only use this skill once per day. He activates both the skills and starts digging like his life depends on it. However, he runs out of oxygen just 3 meters away from the entrance back to the main mine tunnel. His knees buckle and he passes out of oxygen. He gets a latent power surge and can dig to 30 centimeters from the hole. The skill ran out of time, and he fell to the floor, unconscious. As his consciousness is fading away, he wishes that he lived a quiet life as an aristocrat, but as the lights in his eyes started to dim, he heard a crumbling on the other side of the dirt. It is the one and only Podong. He bursts through the dirt. This gives Lloyd enough oxygen to carry on digging. He uses his shovel to lever himself up. We switch scenes and can see the Baron's search party, with the Bayern in tow. He asks the Baron to turn back, as it is dangerous. Then you and the other turn back. I will keep going to the Ned, says the Baron. After this, he sees a silhouette emerging from the darkness from the other side of the tunnel. Lloyd is shown carrying Javier on his back while looking half dead. Lloyd's father runs to his son, and he collapses in his arms. It's the next day, and we can see some villagers talking to each other. One says that they always thought that Lloyd was the mischievous type, but he had him all wrong. They both agree that Lord Lloyd has completely changed who he is as a person for the better. In the next panel, we can see Javier sitting next to Lloyd, who is sleeping. He faintly opens his eyes. He gets a notification saying that for his great achievement, he has been awarded a large amount of bonus RP. His RP counter goes from 7 to 507. He tells himself that he doesn't care if he was a hero, but he will gladly take the 500 RP with a smile on his face. 2 weeks later, they are walking through the mine, and all the workers stop to thank them for saving them. The workers' eyes shine with gratitude, but Lloyd feels a bit awkward with all the attention. Javier notices they are heading back to the ant colony and asks Lloyd why he is doing such risky work himself instead of just sending a servant. Lloyd laughs and says that if there's a big risk, the leader should be the one facing it. Javier listens quietly. Then, Lloyd turns to him with a strange smile and says he likes taking responsibility because when he makes the most money, no one can complain. Suddenly, a message pops up saying that Javier's approval rating for Lloyd was about to go up, but it didn't. They walk a bit more and finally reach the tunnel's end. Javier suggests they go back since there's only a little air left, but Lloyd believes there's an empty space behind the wall. He starts digging. Javier wonders if this is really necessary. Lloyd digs through and shines his torch to see what's ahead. To his surprise, he finds an unconscious orc stuck in a spiderweb. Javier thinks it's dangerous and wants to handle it, but Lloyd warns him to not jump to any conclusions. They poke the orc to check if it's alive. A few hours later, the orc wakes up and thanks Lloyd for saving him, promising to repay him. He introduces himself as Arash, the son of the Sand Tribe chief, and offers to grant them a wish. Lloyd smirks, thinking of how to use this to his advantage, and asks for 120 orcs to work in their mine. Arash refuses, saying that's impossible. Lloyd hides his frustration and asks why. Arash explains that orcs are warriors, and only follow orders from other warriors, so they wouldn't listen to Lloyd. Remembering something from a book about orcs needing to bring a wild ant's head for their coming-of-age ceremony, Lloyd realizes Arash must have wandered too far into the ant colony and got stuck. He starts to think of a sneaky plan. He extends his congratulations to Arash on his coming-of-age ceremony. However, Arash appears dejected, expressing that the event was a failure due to his paralysis, which prevented him from obtaining even a single ant head. Lloyd, amused, asks Arash what he could possibly be speaking about. He presents the head of the queen ant, recounting that during their expedition into the cave with Javier, they encountered the queen ant fighting with him, and she was barely able to maintain her balance, making it relatively simple for them to defeat her. Arash, unable to recall these events, is informed by Lloyd that the ant venom must have impaired his memory. Lloyd reassures Arash that he was the one who vanquished the queen ant, thus successfully completing the coming-of-age ceremony. Reflecting on how pleased his father would be to learn of his success, Arash expresses his determination to find a method to enlist the cooperation of the 120 orcs without fear of insubordination. The trio embarks on their journey to the village of the Sand and Steel tribe of wild orcs. However, their request is met with refusal from the tribe leader, leaving Lloyd momentarily speechless. He asks about the reason behind the rejection, to which the tribe leader explains that the orcs require substantial quantities of meat to sustain their muscular physique. The loss of muscle mass would jeopardize the tribe's survival, meaning they need 3 hunts daily to secure sufficient meat, which spoils within a day. Javier suggests abandoning the endeavor, believing there is no viable solution. Yet, Lloyd remains still, devising a strategy. He poses a question to the tribe leader regarding the implications if their meat could remain edible for an extended period beyond 1 day. The tribe leader responds that if their meat could last longer, it would reduce their hunting requirements to perhaps 2 or even 1 hunt a day. However, he laments that such a notion is mere fantasy, as nothing of the sort exists in their reality. Taking a step forward, Lloyd asserts that there is indeed a method to preserve meat beyond a single day, and he knows how to do it. Arash yells for his dad, tears streaming down his face. The tribe leader shouts back, also crying. They run towards each other as fast as they can and collide in a huge hug that sends shockwaves everywhere. Lloyd and his crew feel the impact of the hug, and Lloyd thinks it's like a bomb went off right next to him. He smiles, knowing that once he gets the 120 orc workers, he can make things happen way faster with the insanely strong orcs, maybe even 100 times faster. After the happy moment, Arash shows off his ant head from his adventure and proudly says he beat the strongest ant, the queen ant. The whole orc tribe raises their hands in celebration. The tribe leader announces that to celebrate his son's coming of age, they will have an intense leg day workout. We then see the orcs grabbing random stuff and doing squats with them. One orc is holding a tall pillar, another orc has a shiny golden chest filled with coins, another one has a fancy chandelier, and the last orc has a stone bird statue. Lloyd notices all the valuable stuff the orcs are sitting on and realizes they don't even know how precious these items are. Now, Lloyd is chatting with Javier. He tells him that he found a builder who can create a freezer room for them, and in exchange, they will get some workout gear from the orcs that just so happens to be made of gold. Javier has never heard of a freezer room before, so he asks Lloyd what it is. Lloyd explains that a freezer room is like when they use ice magic to keep food fresh, but now they can make it without needing the mages to keep things cold. Javier is a bit doubtful, so he questions Lloyd about where he learned about this freezer room and how he knows it will actually work. Lloyd brushes it off, saying he first heard about it at a student club, and that a freezer room is just common knowledge. He quickly changes the subject and tells Javier that to build the freezer room, they will need rocks from the big mountain. Lloyd calls the rocks granite and says they are really strong. Javier grumbles a bit, saying the rocks look like they won't come loose easily. Lloyd agrees, admitting it will be a tough job. He wonders to himself that there isn't any dynamite in the world yet, but he has another plan. He turns to Javier and smiles, thinking he has his own human dynamite now. Javier feels uneasy, thinking that Lloyd is looking at him like he wants to make him do hard work again. We're hearing of a story from the book that Soo-ho Kim read before getting teleported. There's a city that's cut off from the outside by a huge force field, which doesn't let anyone in or out and takes away the mana from everyone trapped inside. Javier, who has become a sword master in the book, is trying really hard to break the force field to save everyone. He thinks to himself, I have to save them, even if it means I might die. Suddenly, without even knowing it, Javier creates a powerful skill. He starts by making one circle to protect the main mana heart. Then, with the 3 other circles, he smashes them all together. At that moment, he throws himself at the force field, guided by his fiery sword. When he hits the force field, sparks fly everywhere, creating a bright orange and yellow explosion. The explosion keeps going, eventually breaking the force field and freeing everyone in the city. Now we're back to the present with Lloyd. He has a blank expression and asks Javier if he could possibly do something like that. Javier tells Lloyd to be honest and asks where he got this idea from. Lloyd blankly says he just thought of it a few weeks ago. He insists he wouldn't lie and tells Javier to look into his eyes to see if he looks like a liar. Javier quickly agrees, saying that he can tell Lloyd is a really annoying liar. Lloyd tries to brush off what Javier just said and asks if he can try the Mana Blast technique. Javier hesitantly walks toward the mountain, saying it probably won't work, but if it does, it might be useful for the future. He thinks about the instructions while getting his sword ready. He sticks his sword into the stone and tries the technique. Lloyd is shocked that Javier managed to pull off the Mana Blast on his first try. Then we see Javier, without a shirt, walking out of the smoke with his hair all curly. He annoyingly asks Lloyd if he knew the technique would burn half his clothes, but Lloyd shakes his head. Javier shrugs it off, saying that Lloyd's guess was right this time, just like last time. We get some system notifications saying that Javier's approval rating went up by 3, making it -11 now. He also gets 54 reputation points. Then we see a quick montage of their work. Javier cuts all the rocks, and Podong stores them in his mouth to drop them off. We see one of Lloyd's construction workers struggling with a heavy granite block. An orc comes up and tells him that if he carries it like that, he'll hurt his back. The orc then offers to help carry it. That's when the orcs realize how heavy the granite rocks are and how much better they are than the random stuff they were using before. Lloyd is sitting down and fanning himself, really shocked by how strong the orcs are since they finished their work 5 times faster than he expected. Lloyd asks Javier how long it has been since they sent 5 guys to get the insulation. Javier answers that it has been exactly 3 weeks. He goes on to say that there are 2 possibilities. Either the men are being lazy, or something bad has happened to them. Lloyd stands up and says he's going to look for them, but Javier stops him, saying that the heir of the estate shouldn't put himself in danger. Lloyd replies that they've already talked about this. Since he's in charge, he has to take responsibility for his men, so he has to go. Javier sighs and agrees to go with him. After walking for a few days, they find a red glove and some straw. Lloyd recognizes the glove as one he gave to his construction crew, and the straw was meant for insulation. Javier then tells Lloyd that he feels something strange coming from the gorge area. He mentions that the mana flow feels unnatural and is very faint, so he's not completely sure. Lloyd thinks hard about any important events that happened in the gorge from the book. Suddenly, he realizes something and starts walking faster, telling Javier to hurry. When Javier asks if something is wrong, Lloyd says they need to rush because their men might already be dead. This shocks Javier. They follow the path of straw to a huge cave. Lloyd remembers reading about this cave in the book. Javier is supposed to fight a guy named Lupalan inside. He gets really mad because someone has taken his hard-working friends, and he thinks the death penalty would be too nice for them. As they start to go inside, Javier tells Lloyd to stay behind him, but before he can finish, he steps on a trap. Lloyd quickly pushes Javier out of the way just in time as the trap goes off. They both stand there, trying to catch their breath. Lloyd asks Javier if he really thinks he's a knight, and that he should have known there would be traps in such a big, suspiciously looking cave. The book says that Javier gets caught in the same trap and ends up walking through the cave, all hurt. Now, Javier decides to close his eyes and feel the mana in the cave to check for more traps ahead. He lifts his head and tells Lloyd to follow him. As they walk through the dark cave, we hear Javier's thoughts. He wonders if Lloyd can see the future right now. He doesn't feel any strong mana, or special energy from him, but he thinks something is off about Lloyd Frontera. But he tells himself to focus on what they need to do and worry about that later. A mysterious man in a cloak is seen reading a spell book. He turns around, showing his dark red eyes and pale skin. He senses that one of his traps has been triggered and wonders if someone is trying to save the man he captured a few days ago. Closing the book, he thinks they might already be dead and walks to the door, mumbling that he is finally ready. When he opens the door, the light floods in and the kidnapped men squint at him. One of them pleads for his life as the cloaked man drags him toward a strange drawing on the floor. He picks up his sickle and tells the man to get ready to die. Just as he swings the sickle down, a shout comes from the other side of the hallway. Lloyd yells at the cloaked man, warning him not to harm what he considers his valuable possession. The man in the cloak is really frustrated about how the two guys got past all the traps he set up to protect his cave. He quickly casts a spell, and a big metal door crashes down between him and the two intruders. Suddenly, sleeping gas starts pouring out on Lloyd and Javier's side of the door. Lloyd takes a deep breath and holds it while he uses his Energizer skill, which keeps him full of energy for 10 minutes. He begins to dig down, thinking to himself that Javier doesn't even need to worry about holding his breath because he's tried every insomnia remedy out there, so he's used to sleeping gas. Lloyd keeps digging and is almost halfway through. Javier looks down at him and jokes that he looks like a mole, planning to tease him about it later. The mole pops his head out of the hole and signals to Javier to use his mana blast to help finish the job. Javier gets ready, slams his sword into the ground, and shatters it, surprising the cloaked man who falls down. Lloyd starts to crawl out of the dirt, but before he can catch his breath, the cloaked man begins another spell, this time summoning a ghoul. The creepy creature rises from the ground and lets out a huge roar. The cloaked man grins wickedly and says the ghoul's skin is as tough as steel, meaning it's going to be a tough fight for them. Lloyd warns Javier that they need to aim for the ghoul's legs, since that's its weak spot. But before Lloyd can finish, Javier leaps into the air and uses a powerful mana blast slash, cutting the ghoul in half. Both Lloyd and the cloaked man are left speechless by Javier's strength. Lloyd thinks to himself that he's never seen that move before. It wasn't even in the book. Javier has just invented a new skill, and Lloyd is amazed. The man in the cloak falls to the ground and asks Javier if he is going to die. Lloyd kneels next to him and tells him that because of him, they are a whole week behind on their building project. He demands to know how the man plans to make up for this. The cloaked man gets on his hands and knees, begging for forgiveness, thinking that if he shows how sorry he is, Lloyd will let him go. But Lloyd isn't interested in his apologies. He wants something in return for all the time lost. The man offers up his magical tools, saying they are worth a lot, and Lloyd seems happy about that. Meanwhile, Javier saves the other men from the dark room and warns that if they had come later, everyone would have starved. Lloyd turns back to the cloaked man and asks what he intended to do with his captives. The man confesses he was trying to bring his dead family back to life. Lloyd gives him a skeptical look and questions if that's even possible. The man starts to cry, explaining that he wanted to revive his wife and child because a powerful lord took them away when they tried to escape. Sadly, the lord found them and killed his family, leaving him to suffer alone. Lloyd interrupts him, saying he doesn't want to hear any more of his life story. With a serious expression, Lloyd asks the man if he believes his wife and child would be happy to return to life if it meant hurting hundreds of others. No matter how you look at it, it won't change who you really are. You're just a serial killer. You've completely destroyed the happiness of others, people just like you, Lloyd tells him as the man hangs his head in shame. He starts crying hard. Lloyd warns the murderer that he will return with his team to take his tools, and if he tries to harm anyone again, he won't hold back. The man lies on the ground again, thanking Lloyd for his kindness. As they leave, Lloyd remembers what happens in the book. Javier lets the man go, but later he comes back disfigured and becomes one of the main villains. As Lloyd walks away, the cloaked man shoots a fierce look at the group and begins to cast a spell. But Lloyd was ready for this. He turns around, glaring at the cloaked man, reminding him that he said there would be no mercy if he tried to hurt anyone again. This is Javier's signal. He quickly draws his weapon and kills the man instantly, with his head flying off. We flash back to when Suo was still in the real world. He worked in construction and had a boss who constantly insulted him and treated him like he was worthless, but Suho kept taking the insults. One day, Suho Kim said hello to his boss a bit too loudly, and the boss complained that it almost hurt his ears. As the boss walked away, Suho clenched his teeth in frustration. The boss grumbled to himself, wondering why Suho's parents even had him if all he did was kiss up to others. This was the last straw for Suho. He always believed that if you showed respect, you would get it back. He had been patient, hoping his boss would change his attitude. But this time, he decided to stand up for himself. He tapped the boss on the shoulder and started hitting him hard. Other employees had to pull Suho off to stop the fight. The next day, Suho was carrying poles when he accidentally bumped into his boss, who was now demoted after management found out how he treated his workers. The boss tried to avoid looking at Suho. Suho thought to himself, "Finally, I have some peace." Usually, fighting back isn't the best way to solve problems, but sometimes people need to learn a lesson and experience what they dish out. Meanwhile, Lloyd walked away from the body of a cloaked man lying lifeless on the ground. "Don't make me laugh," he said quietly. "Villains deserve a punishment that fits their crimes," he muttered as they left the cave.